You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo or honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker out there, you can try spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. Listen, I'm going to dare you to do it. I dare you. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs that you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and then grab a few more napkins and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's.
What up, Cal fans? We are back with a very special episode of Golden Bearcast, a proud partner of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. It is Big Game Week, and we have a guest to meet the moment, Giorgio Tavecchio. Giorgio, welcome to the Golden Bearcast.
Ciao, Andy. It's great to be here. Great to see you again.
It is truly great to see you. For those that are listening, and I did prep Giorgio that I was going to make him a little uncomfortable here. When you are a student manager working with the football team, the totem pole of respect that you get as a student manager, you have to be pretty low. I mean, we're like the hydrotechs and the student managers, we're pretty down low on the totem pole. Let me tell you about this man right here. And it's not just to me. And the best part about this is I told my buddy Brian, who you probably remember, that you were coming on to our podcast. Mm-hmm. And he just goes, nicest guy in the world. And I cannot tell you how true that is.
Oh, thanks.
You are, bar none, the kindest person that in my experience with the team, out of 128 players, you were, and you can include staff in that, like just the level of kindness and with how you approach people is to this day something that I will have a never-ending amount of gratitude for.
Very kind of you to say thank you, and you're making me blush. And thankfully, no one can see my face because they say I got a face for radio, so it's good that we're only doing this on audio. But I appreciate the kind words.
You and me both. All right, Giorgio, I'd love to. So our relationship, I'll take our listeners through that real quick. So I worked with the team in 2009. Giorgio, you were obviously our kicker in 2009 and beyond. I also got to know Vic and a ton of the guys on the team. So it's just been a great for me to follow your career to the NFL and follow what you're doing now, and just continually root for you throughout this whole process. I would love to have you catch us up on what you've been up to, where you've been, and anything else you feel like the Cal community would benefit from hearing.
Sure. Well, it's been a hell of a ride, Andy. I'll try to keep this brief because I tend to be a little bit verbose. But after my experience at Cal, which was just a magical time, people ask me all the time, what was your experience like, college football in Berkeley? And for me, I feel like such a grateful guest, of my time at Berkeley. Just really good experience. But I wasn't a super big name kicker coming out of college, even though I had a great senior year and wasn't really on the radar. But my the spring of my senior year, just academically, I finished my degree and trained for the NFL, and I was at the right place at the right time, or I should have said left place at the left time, because I was the only left-footed kicker coming out of college, and I happened to be in the Bay Area. The 49ers were looking for a lefty camp leg, to kind of be an understudy of David Akers. This was 2012. And I ended up doing a local senior combine for the 49ers, and I don't think I was ever officially on the list, or no one ever told me that I was on the list that I could go try out for the local senior pro day, but I just kind of carpooled with some of my teammates and I had a good day kicking. I was the only kicker, and they were looking for a lefty camp leg. So as I mentioned, worked out, right place, right time, got picked up as a free agent, and that got me into this cycle of being on teams in training camp and preseason competing, but then I'd get cut just before the season because they only kept one kicker on the roster. And I went through that 6 years. I was on the 49ers in 2012, Packers 2013, Lions in 2014, then Raiders 15, 16, 17, and 18. And I finally got my break in 2017 when Janikowski ended up having a back injury, and I stepped in and had just a crazy debut game with just special teams player of the week, 4 for 4 field goals, 250-yard plus field goals. It was just the classic Cinderella tale of sorts, where it takes years of hard work to become an overnight success. So I had that experience in the NFL, played a couple years, and then as my NFL career was sunsetting, I ended up meeting a woman in Italy that changed my life. So my life trajectory then switched back to Milan, Italy, which is where I was born, where my dad's family's from. And in 2022, I moved back to Italy full time. Towards 2018, 2019, I also started a small company with Vincenzo, with Vic, and we imported Italian wine, pasta, and sauce. And it kind of started as a passion project, then grew a little bit, and then had a couple good years. And then as time went on, and I started to make these bigger life decisions, I ended up stepping away and starting anew in Italy. And I've been there since September of 2022. I worked for a company called Boolean. We're an online tech academy. We're in the ed tech space. We offer courses that help people change their lives, honestly. We help them reskill. So if you were a pasta maker, a pastry chef, a construction worker, a salesman, and you wanted to get into the tech world as a developer or a data analyst, take one of our courses for 6 months or 4 months, and then we help you find a job. And we're the market leader in Italy, and I've been managing the courses offered in English because we've been in the English-speaking market for the past couple of years. And that's where we are now, having this conversation.
That is incredible.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write a million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
And the EdTech, we talked about this a little bit before, but the EdTech journey for me is so near and dear to my heart because that's exactly what I did in 2014 with Block and their original online boot camp. And really can understand the importance of that journey and helping people. But the thing that I think about when I hear you, that you're in that space and reflecting upon my time, really trying to take people through the thought process of investing their life savings and making a transition and a career transition. Something that stands out to me in the story that you just told is 6 years of being on a practice squad. Am I correct in that?
So I actually was never on the practice squad. I was always on the roster in the off season. And at that time, let's just say from January to August, NFL teams can have 90 players under contract on the roster. Then late August comes and the famous cut day rolls around, and they cut from 90 players to 53. The problem is that in those 53, there's only one kicker. There's no backup. You're either the starter or you're unemployed. It's a huge chasm between the two worlds. But the difference is a very fine line. And a lot of times that difference comes down to, do we trust this guy, or do we know, is he an established veteran? Is it one less thing we have to worry about? So you kind of have to bide your time and hope you're at the right place at the right time, which thankfully happened to me. For many other people, weren't as fortunate to get that break. I got the chance to get that break, but I made sure I was ready for it.
The thing that I really think there's just this persistence or sustained enthusiasm that seems to be a trait that would be unique to you there. How many people are in that situation thinking, hey, this is my shot, it doesn't happen. This is my shot, it doesn't happen. You do that 3 or 4 times. Okay. Maybe you're thinking, hey, all right, I'm a Berkeley graduate. I have a lot of employable skills. So what keeps you what keeps that commitment going for you? Like what kept the fire burning? And I know we talked about even today where you're still involved in football to a degree out in Europe. And I would just love to hear about like how you kept tapping into that inside of yourself.
Sure. And I think your perspective is very realistic. And it's what my mother kept telling me, George, get a real job. All those years of going through that cycle, not really enjoying the windfalls of making it. It's tough. It's tough. So whether it's persistence or stupidity, it depends on the perspective, I guess. But to answer your question, what kept me motivated, what kept my drive going was that I felt like I was growing through all these experiences. I was more of a soccer player in high school, got to kicking football seriously kind of late, played 4 years at Cal, played very early, didn't have a ton of time to really develop. So I think when I finally got to the NFL, I was still underdeveloped in a way. And I felt like as I went through each of these iterative cycles, I felt like I was getting better and better and better. Not just stronger, but also more accurate, better, kind of maybe even stronger mentally. And I just felt like I was growing. I was getting better and better and better. And I kept getting phone calls. And that's how I lived that journey. I lived it kind of phone call to phone call, tryout to tryout, and just making sure that I was remaining relevant. And what I mean by that is if you're getting phone calls, it means you're one of the 3 or 4 guys that's on the short list to get workouts during the season, or you get signed right after the season ends. And there's a handful of those guys, right? And then there's a large group of number that want to be those guys, those guys getting phone calls who obviously everybody wants to be the starter, but then there's that group, that gray area of 3 or 4 guys who are kind of on the short list. And every year it was confirmed to me that I was on that short list. And I didn't want to lose that opportunity because once you take a step away and you move on, the door's closed. It is an insurmountable challenge to get back onto that short list, to get back into that kind of group of relevant kickers. So I lived it year by year, asking myself, am I still relevant? Am I still getting phone calls? Yes. Okay. Then I'll give it another 6 months, or, I'm getting workouts during the season. I get signed right after the season. So it made sense to just keep trying to grow. And that was just from a purely pragmatic standpoint. And then from a kind of psychological standpoint, even an emotional standpoint, I just felt like what football offered me was the opportunity to challenge myself to find my best in the worst case scenarios, right? Because as a kicker, whether you're flying overnight to go try out and you have 4 field goals in front of the coaches, and like you didn't sleep because you took the red eye, you got a phone call 2 hours before you jumped on the plane. Like those are all excuses, circumstances. You got to show up. What are you going to bring on the field that day for those 4 kicks? What are you going to get out of yourself? And I think it was maybe Lombardi who said, football doesn't build character, it reveals it. So I always wanted to try to challenge myself to put myself in those situations so that I can find my best. As uncomfortable as it was, as challenging as it was a way of growing, I guess, internally and externally. So that's what really drove me. I just felt there was some deeper purpose in all this, and it was very intrinsic to me. Maybe too much, but that's what sustained me all those years.
There's so much in that I think is not just a fascinating journey, and what you said of really a Cinderella story, but like so much so, I think you like personify what it means to be gritty, what it means to find that level within yourself, and then also understand that you own the outcome of the situation that you're in, and it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to show up with 100% of yourself or not, and let things out on the outside dictate how you're going to present in front of others. And that is way easier said than done. I am so unbelievably impressed by that journey. I would love to take it from that point where, okay, you break in with the Raiders, you win special teams player of the week. I remember the 250 plus yarders where Cal community is losing it before the Cal rhythm even existed. And how do you go from there? Did you feel like you had made it, or did you still feel that sense of not even so much proving yourself, but like, hey, now that I'm here, like I'm going to belong, and I'm going to continue to tap back into what got me here to take me even further?
Yeah. That's a great question. So I think one of my special teams coaches put the life of a kicker in these terms, and he said, when you go through the NFL season as a kicker, you start a new life every week, right? Regardless of how well you did the week before, if you won special teams play of the week or you missed 3 field goals, it didn't matter. You started kind of a new cycle of life, and you just went through the season week by week. It's almost like a cat with 9 lives, right? And you just hope that you never have really truly bad experiences, and that doesn't really truly cost you your job, right? So no matter how well you did or how poorly you did the game before, I always approach the next week with the same fresh start, kind of beginner's mind type of mentality. Now, obviously, the routine, the process, everything was set in stone, and I would bring my attention there, but it was a very mutually independent experience on a week-to-week basis. Because as much as I did to put myself in control of the situation by eliminating as many variables as possible, inevitably, there's a lot of variables that factor into your outcome as a kicker that are totally out of your control, right? The snap, the hold, the protection, the wind, the situation, all this stuff that you really can't control. And that's kind of the I guess the paradox of being a kicker. You have a ton of responsibility, very little control. So that's a chasm that you have to cross somehow, psychologically. So I would go back to my process, go back to just trying to stay as present in the moment as possible, and live every week like it was a new life, right? So it was a wild ride, maybe not the healthiest way to live it because you live on the edge of a knife. But again, it brings out the best in you because you wake up every day with a really deep purpose because you know that you're going to be challenged that day. And really the only time I felt like I had made it, or I allowed myself a brief moment to take a breath, we had played Sunday night at Miami. I had a really good game. We won by a couple points, and I was decisive in the game. And low power mode. So I was really decisive in the game. And then flying back from Miami, we had a bye week the following week. So after the game on Sunday night, this is probably like 4 a.m. in the morning, 30,000 feet over Kansas somewhere. And I was just sitting there thinking, this is real. I had a great season up to that point. I just had another really good game. We had a bye week, so I had extra time before I could start a new life for the following game. So I had a little bit extra buffer space to just take stock of where I was and what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty special, emotional moment on a plane by myself in the middle of nowhere over Kansas. Or maybe, who knows, was it Kansas? Was it Nebraska? Was it Colorado? God knows. But it was a pretty special moment between me and myself.
And I love that you had that moment. I think so much of the best advice I had before our wedding was that it's going to go by so fast. You're not going to remember and basically any of it. So make sure to remove yourself from the dance floor, remove yourself from the scene for 1 second, and take a deep breath and look around and know that all these people in this place are here for you. And it's probably the only time that it's going to happen. And so what I love is that you had that presence. And I it's the only moment I really remember from my wedding. My wife doesn't love when I say that out loud, but
it's not like we're recording or anything.
yeah, and that's luckily she's not always overly invested in my love of Cal football. Man, that is just such a motivational and cool story. I love that so much. I want to pivot a little bit just to your time at Cal. And given that it's big game week, I think at this point, anyone listening is like, let's do a big game question.
Yeah.
We had a moment in Palo Alto in 2009 that was pretty special. So I don't want to spoil it, but is there a dark horse big game moment that exists outside of that 2009 game for you?
Well, one thing when I look back at my time at Cal, one of the things I pride myself on, and when I was going through Cal and going through the experience, a lot of times what was on my mind was, how am I going to be remembered? What type of legacy am I going to leave? And leg as in kicker, legacy.
Well done.
Thanks. Pun intended. And so I wanted to, be remembered as someone who was a good player, but a good person, always contributed, And one of the things I hold my hat on, let's just say unconsciously, or hang my hat on, is I never missed a field goal against USC, never missed a field goal against Stanford. So for me, like those were probably the two biggest rivalries I felt while I was in the program. So to know that I always stepped up in those games, always had good games, always felt like I contributed, always felt good to me. I remember the 2009 game. That was a pretty special finish, at the end. That was really cool. But what my claim to fame is with the big game, this was in 2011, I think it was my senior year. I think it was a pretty bad weather game, and we were at Stanford, and I think it was Joey Chestnut was totally hammered on the sideline, or not on the sideline. He was in the first row of the stands, right by the kicking net, and he was heckling me and Vincenzo all first half, just totally wasted. I remember the second half, someone actually kicked him out. I think someone, a bouncer came by or steward and politely asked him to leave. But I remember it was Joey, and there was this young lady sitting next to him. She wasn't in the greatest of moods. Maybe he had one or a few too many, but he was heckling us all game. And I just remember that. Now, again, no offense to Joey Chestnut. I think it was Eater X is what he goes by, Joey's Chestnut. But it was just
this wasn't on my bingo card.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that I hold on to that, again, doesn't equate to really anything meaningful in the storied classic ACC matchup between Cal and Stanford. But it was one of the things that I remember from, kind of a very personal moment where I'm sitting there thinking, oh, this guy's, wow, cool, yeah. This guy's heckling me. A famous, or let's just call him a semi-public figure is heckling me. And he's totally wasted, and it's hilarious. Yeah.
Truly one of the most unique American figures in the sense that it just doesn't really happen.
Doesn't really happen anywhere else in the world. Although you can say it has an international flair, right? With Kobayashi,
yes.
The Kobayashi shake. But I remember it's just a very quintessentially American thing, and this guy is to many people a living legend. Much respect, but then he's just plastered and just heckling us. It was just kind of funny. Yeah.
So let that be known to the fans that are sitting in the couple first rows. The players can hear you.
Yeah, the players can hear you. We're humans too, and if you're gonna heckle, at least make it funny. Make it in good jest. Make it something that we can both laugh at over a beer.
Yes.
10 years after the game.
Love that. Yeah. I love that. Yes. Well, okay, let's go 2009.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember, about I think for me, the celebration in the locker room where
cool.
it was so special. But I was just curious to your thoughts on that game and what it felt like for you.
So that game was honestly a little bit tough for me because the week before I had a really good game against Arizona, and I made, I'll call it a slide tackle on a kickoff. I got juked. The guy, returner got out, and I stuck my foot out, and he tripped over my shin. But in doing so, he opened up my shin. Had stitches, but then it got infected. So the rest of the week, I just wasn't 100%. I just wasn't really kicking right, and I had a bad warm up at the Stanford game, so I got benched on field goals. I was still doing kickoffs, and I did kickoffs, but I got benched on field goals. So it was tough for me, to have to take a step back. But then I was happy for Vincenzo because he stepped in. I think he had 2 field goals, and we ended up winning by 6 points, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So for me personally, it was like, kind of a shot. But that's where kind of the duality comes in, where it's not about me as an individual, it's about us as a team. And I was still able to contribute, even though on kickoffs we had to squib all game because they had Owusu. I think Chris Owusu was their returner, who I ended up playing with in San Francisco in 2012. He's a really good dude. And I remember like I felt so emasculated that I had to squib. It's like, come on, man, let me kick it. Trust me. Right now my shin is twice the size of my quad. So I got much more muscle, I got much more mass behind the ball. It's gonna be in the end zone. Don't worry. You know. But we had to squib, and again, special teams we did our job because nothing bad happened. Vince made his field goals, and then obviously we picked off luck there at the end, and it was a really cool way to just like explode in celebration, and just like this relief that we had pulled it off because we were winning, I think, most of the game, if I'm not mistaken, and this was a way to just like seal it, and when that feeling when you feel like you have something to lose and it seems to be impending or looming, and then all of a sudden it doesn't happen in the blink of an eye, and it's just this huge cathartic release, like, ha, suckers, we got them.
I would put that feeling. I can't remember. Were you 2007 or 2008 freshman year? 2008. So my freshman year being 2007, and it was just this amazing moment for me getting to go to the Oregon game, and that was the game where Esef hit. I think it was Dennis Dixon, but I can't totally remember. And fumbled through the end of the goal line, and looked like we're gonna lose, and then we win, and I think that game really captured a lot of that same emotion in such a cool way. Are there any other Cal games that stand out to you as like personal favorites, or maybe like a memory that you want to?
There's a lot. So one that comes to mind was the Washington game my junior year. We were playing at home. It was the last game of the season, and we needed to win to make it to a bowl game. Unfortunately, we had kind of a tough year. Why that's special to me, again, personally, was because the game before we had played Oregon, or was it the game before or 2 games before? I can't remember exactly. We played the University of Oregon. They were number 2 in the country at the time, and I missed the short field goal at the beginning of the fourth quarter after having made it, but then got called for a false start on a kicker, which I've never seen called before and never seen called since, and I've seen kickers take a small step before the snap. It was just supposed to be destiny. Missed the kick, no excuses, I need to make the kick. We ended up losing by 2 points, and I got a lot of flack for it, and I just felt this terrible sense of having let everybody down. And I think from that moment, I was a different kicker. I only missed 1 field goal the rest of my career. And the following game, if I'm not mistaken, or the game after the following game was the Washington game. And I had 2 kind of clutch field goals to almost win the game. We ended up losing because Chris Polk scored on a 1-yard touchdown run from the 1-yard line. But I really stepped up, and I felt like I was really proud of myself for having responded, right? After having probably the low point of my Cal career was that Oregon kick, to then being able to bounce back the next game. And again, I'll have to go back into the annals of Cal football to see if it was the next game or the subsequent game. But being able to respond, I hit a 47-yarder and a 53-yarder, both in kind of clutch situations. One was at the end of the first half, one was at the end of the game to get us close or to put us up by a certain score. And I just really felt like that's who I was, who I wanted to be, and it was validated after a low point. So being able to come back and respond well was really special to me. So that was my, one of my really special moments. And then my senior year, the last 2 games I played, I went 4 for 4 against Arizona State when we won, and then went 1 of 1 or 2. I think maybe just 1 of 1 in the bowl game. So I really finished my Cal career strong and went on a really high note, even though we ended up losing the bowl game. But I felt like I really finished the way I wanted to because I was really focused on staying present in that moment, enjoying every second, not getting ahead of myself thinking for the future, but just really being there, And then, in fact, after the bowl game my senior year, which was the Holiday Bowl against Texas, I was the last one off the field. I was crying, and I went to hug literally every single person in the locker room, one by one, pom, 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 everybody, because it meant so much to me, what we had, what I was a part of, being a part of the Cal football team. It was just such an impactful time of life for me, and it was really, really meaningful. So that, again, nothing that made it in the history books, but to me, really special.
So special. And I think it was, dog RIP.
Yeah.
It's a great day to be a Bear going around. I mean, there's just something so incredibly special about everything that you just said and that you've reiterated and talked about throughout this entire time that we've had together, I think that for me as an outside observer to that moment, I was going to use the Batman quote.
Do it.
Batman Begins, right? He says, "Why do we fall, Mr. Wayne? Why do we fall? To learn how to pick ourselves back up." But for what it is that you really talked about, and I just think it's so cool, is to go full circle here. You have that moment, and you essentially, what I heard from you is that you built the grit and the resiliency that ended up creating the opportunity for you to have a, long, I mean, you think about NFL careers, they're what, like 2 to 3 years, right? Those things are short. And so it's such a testament to your character. And I promise I know this from the bottom of my heart without even being at that Holiday Bowl game, Giorgio. I know that when you went around to every single person, it wasn't just players, it was also staff and everybody else that supported you. And I know that moment meant just as much for them as it did for you because of who you are and just how genuinely good of a person you are. So, I mean, just hats off to you. This was such an awesome opportunity for me to catch up with you and have you on here. I can't thank you enough. I do want to give you the platform back. I know you have cool things going on in Boolean. Anything you want to shout out or you want to talk about what's going on in your life that you want to highlight, or even in the world, the floor is yours.
I wasn't expecting that. No, I just want to say how grateful I am to be a bear. I know it's probably coming out in what I've been sharing. But as I'm in a time of life, actually, it's been a very challenging time of life. My mom passed away a couple months ago, unexpectedly, no longer with a girlfriend in Italy, which was a big change for me. So
wow.
I'm in a very difficult place of life right now. And being able to get the chance to reminisce on some special times of life, and remind me of who I am, right? In a time where all that seems to just be completely obliterated by life, which happens, is special for me too. So I appreciate the chance to come and share, and to shoot the breeze, remember some of the good old days, because it is nothing but a source of deep gratitude for me. Truly, my experience at Cal, so being able to revisit it every once in a while is special.
Well, I think I speak for the entire Cal fan community, our listeners, anyone that we're so sorry for your loss. We send you so much love.
Thank you.
And I hope that people reach out and send memories and gratitude for what you brought to all of us, which is, and the joy in watching you succeed, my friend, will never, ever, ever get old. So thanks again for being here.
Pleasure is all mine. And big hugs to everybody in the Cal community. We're nothing but love. Nothing but love.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.